Yeah.
Morning. Sorry?
Where can I get some water?
In the kitchen. Yeah, I can take as well. Yeah, take that.
You need a cup?
Thank you.
You want a cup?
I'll drink it, but
Yeah,
Okay, sorry.
no problem. So we are on Psachim, Kuf, Yud, Zayin, Amud Aleph, 117a. And if you look in the middle of the page where the line begins with the Yisrael, and you see a colon, count down 1, 2, 3 lines. The line begins with the word ha'amuros, and in the middle of the line is the word nitzuach v'nigun. Yeah. Okay, so we're in the middle of discussing halal, right? Because we're learning the order of the Seder night, and at this juncture, before drinking the second cup of wine, we are to begin the halal. That was the Mishnah's instruction. So from here, the Gemara goes on to discuss the halal generally, the halal specifically, and then more broadly, Tehillim as a whole. We discussed the authors, when it was written, and so on. And the last thing we commented was that there are there was 3 opinions. One opinion which said that Tehillim is David writing about his own experience, and then he shared that with the people. Others say to be true that David is writing Tehillim on behalf of the Jewish people. And the third opinion, which says that whenever David speaks in the singular, he's talking about his own experience, and when he speaks in the plural, he's talking about the Jewish people as a whole.
Can I make a comment?
Sure.
I thought that David HaMelech is a prophet.
Okay.
So if he's a prophet and he's writing,
okay,
it can't only be writing about himself. He's writing about the future too.
Well, prophecy doesn't necessarily have to be the future.
It doesn't, but
we'll see in a second about the future. But
okay.
Prophecy just means that a person is communicating divine inspiration. It could be about the present. It could be about the past. It doesn't have to be future necessarily. Right?
Not necessarily.
Right. So just read Tehillim in translation. It's not necessarily the future. Sometimes it is a prayer for the future, and we'll talk about that in a second.
Okay.
But it's just a question of who is he talking on behalf of whom and whose experience is being expressed.
Mm-hmm.
And that was his freeway opinion on his own experiences, people's experiences, or some this way, some that way. Now, the Gemara had noted earlier as well that there are multiple different languages with which Tehillim will begin, or chapter in Tehillim will begin its song. Mizmar, Maskil, Shir, a whole bunch of different terminologies. So the Gemara is going to discuss some of those and what those descriptions indicate about that song. So let's begin. Nitzuach v'nigun. When the Tehillim begins with either nitzuach or nigun, nigun is song, and lam natseach is the word nitzuach, which is choir master, another kind of song. Says the Gemara, la'asad lavai. Then he is speaking, excuse me. Thank you. Then he's speaking in the future tense, or he's singing about the future. So, which isn't necessarily a prediction, perhaps it is, or it could be a request, a prayer for the future, or a hope for the future, something of that nature, but it's speaking of the future. Rashbam comments and says, I don't know how the word nitzuach or nigun got to future, but this must be the tradition. That's what Rashbam comments here. But it's interesting to think about that the two expressions in Tehillim that are song related, choir master, lamatzeach is for the choir master, and nigun means, of course, a nigun. Interesting to think about why it is specifically that song is related to the future. Sorry.
Just a quick interruption. To get our podcast,
1 second, let me just
person access.
All right, that's so it's interesting to think about why song is related to the future specifically. It is interesting because oftentimes song, especially soulful song melodies, are often related to nostalgia. It's often what people associate with, which is the past. Mm-hmm. And here in Tehillim, we're looking at song going toward the future, which is interesting. And that I'm just putting this out there as a thought. I'm not saying this definitively, but just as a thought on my own. And of course, therefore, anybody's welcome to disagree. But it's just a thought. Yeah, sure.
The song of the sea when they were crossing is that a future?
Oh, very good. So the song at the sea, for example. Okay, so the word shir is not, the word nigun is not there, neither is nitzuach. It's shir, as yashir, which is another word for song. But nonetheless, interesting, it is, of course, a past because they're thinking about what they just walked out. But one of the allusions for the future time of resurrection is in the words Az Yashir.
Yeah.
Then Moshe will sing.
Okay, so that's an
So
interesting.
that's an interesting connection there, where again there's a song which is about an event that just happened, therefore past, but in there itself is embedded this notion of the future. Then Moshe will sing as an allusion, one of the allusions in scripture in the 5 books of Moshe to the resurrection of future time. So there's a future there. Now, just okay, so what the thought I want to share was, that's interesting, which of course ties into this. What's interesting is again, it's just a thought, and of course, welcome to disagree. If you're familiar with Chabad Nigunim, whether they're slow or fast, they very much propel the person to do something. A lot of songs bring a different mood, bring a different feeling. Each song and certain genres and the way they're written, and the way they're sung and so on, or played. Right? We spoke about this once way back when we learned about music in general, and we read this comment from Rebbe about rock and roll. The Rebbe was concerned that as a whole, the feelings that rock and roll are meant to
Conjure
convey to the listener is to like break free and break boundaries. And I was concerned that it's all about like losing Kabbalah, so letting loose and not rather than the discipline of following Torah law. Right? That was talking about that specifically to the band Piamenta and how they should try to change that and use their music to inspire Jewish practice rather than the rivers. So there was that type of music. Then there are other kinds of music, even Jewish music, even Hasidic music, not Chabad in particular, which is meant to make the person feel good and where he is. Sometimes nostalgia, sometimes through other things where a person just feels comfortable in that spot.
Mm-hmm.
Then if you listen to Chabad Nigunim, they're very charged. They're very much like, okay, we got to get up and do something. Right? Action based, like especially the fast songs are like motivators. You got to move. And even the slow Nigunim are very introspective and therefore like demanding of like, okay, where am I going? Like a longing for something greater. And maybe that's the nigun of the future type thing, where it's a song that doesn't just let you sit where you are and say, wow, this was so amazing. Think of what we had. Think of where we come. But more kind of song that propels you into the future. It's okay, you got to do something now. You get a longing for a future rather than nostalgia for a past or comfort in where we are. It's a longing and a drive and a march that says go forward. And maybe that's the meaning here of Nitzuach and Nigun and being lost in the future. Literally, it means it's a song for the future, as in Mashiach's time, it's a song for the future. But perhaps embedded in this language of for the future also means it's pushing you to go forward. It's a call to work, which is what Mashiach is. It's the culmination of all our actions, bringing about this divine reality in this world. So getting you moving forward toward what? Toward that future time that's being sung about in the song, perhaps. Okay.
Sounds good.
Yeah, just a thought. And again, anyways, welcome to disagree.
Nope.
Okay, so that's with respect to Nitzuach V'Nigun. Then you have Maskil. Sometimes the Tehillim opens up with Maskil. The word Maskil, the root word, is Seichel, intelligence. So Maskil means, maybe means to theorize, to think, to pontificate. There's a thinking element here. There's an intellectualization here. In the word Maskil, right? Sometimes Tehillim begins with Maskil David, Maskil Eson.
Use your brain.
To the thinker,
use your mind.
the thinker, to the
consciousness.
to the thinker, to the pontificator, to the contemplator, something like that. So says the Gemara, whenever that term is used in Tehillim, Aidei Torgaman, that means this psalm was conveyed through a translator, through an intermediary. So all the way till Talmudic times, and even after Talmudic times, the practice was that the teacher would speak in very brief, concise, precise term, and then he would have a maturgaman, he would have a translator who would then convey the message to the rest of the class. That's the way it used to be in Babylonia. We have records of, at least one, we spoke about this in one of our history classes, of travelers who traveled to Babylonia way after the Talmud was already ended. But while the Gaonim were still living in Babylonia, as Ashkenaz in Germany and Spain, Sephardim in Spain are starting to grow, but Babylonia is still a center of Torah, and we have records of travelers going there describing the Turkmen, describing the translators. Yeah. So this practice, clearly goes back all the way till biblical times too. And King David would have had that as well. And so therefore, says the Gemara, whenever there's maskil, indicating that there's a required intellectualization and required thinking and intelligence there, then there's a conveyor in between. There's a maturgman, there's a translator who brings it to us, bring that psalm to us from the words of King David via this translator.
Yeah, just add a
Or
word
interpreter, yeah.
on maskil. In English, we would probably say reflect.
Something like that, yeah. Maybe we can get a Tillim and see if there's an English Tillim there.
Yeah.
Maybe we can see how it's translated in English.
What I'm trying to suggest is that we don't always go by our first thought.
Oh, yeah, certainly,
You
yeah.
have to reflect on things, turn it over in your mull it over, so
Yeah.
you can come up with the best answer.
There's here we have, let's see, there's Maskil La'asaf. It just says a Maskil without translating it.
I'm just suggesting.
And it says in footnote 3, a psalm intended to enlighten and impart knowledge. Here we go. So it requires reflection and so on. Yeah, reflection is a good word.
What's the meaning of the translator? Is it
A translator means,
is this a direct?
okay, good question. What is the meaning of a translator?
Or is it giving meaning?
Good, yeah. So a translator means that the idea, here, 78, sorry. The idea of a translator means that what's being conveyed here, because it's idea, it requires you to think of it in your own language. You have to internalize it. And when you internalize something, you have to think about it in your own language, in your own words, in your own thinking, right? When there's a song, let's say, it's not about you getting to your own thinking. You have to just like let yourself go and go into the song, right?
So in other words,
But an idea is the other way around. You have to like think about it and interpret it in your own words.
so practically speaking, if we're reading Tehillim in our native language, let's say English,
Yeah.
we come across a maskil, is it better for us to read it in our native language?
So when you're doing Tehillim
Or
as part of your davening, just say the Hebrew in and of itself. But if you're studying Tehillim and you're trying to get its feeling, then a maskil says, okay, think about it, interpret it, see what it means to you. Presumably.
Interesting.
Yeah. Okay, good point.
Very good.
Then continues the Gemara and says, if the psalm opens up with LeDavid Mizmar, to David a song, another term for song, but this time Mizmar, or medley, let's say, to David a medley. So the word David comes first, and then medley comes afterward. Melame, this indicates to you, Sharsa alav shchina, first, the divine presence rested upon him, the divine inspiration rested upon him. Va'achkach amra shira, and then he said the song, because it says LeDavid, to King David, from him, from his inspiration, flowed a mizmar, a song. Right, so sometimes there's an inspiration, and King David's like a conduit out of which comes a song. And other times, Mizmar LeDavid, where the Tehillim begins with a song to David, rather than to David a song, putting the word song first, then that means, Malamed, this teaches you, Sha'amar Shira, that first King David started to sing his own song, and only afterwards, Sharsa alav shchina, that the presence of the divine inspiration rest upon him. So either inspired, and then out flows a song, or he puts himself into the zone by singing a song, and then inspiration flows through. Either way is something interesting for us to learn on our own level. Not that I think any of us are ever going to get to the level of inspiration where we're writing Tehillim, but on our own level, we do get inspired sometimes. And there are different types of inspiration. Sometimes the inspiration comes from outside, right? And sometimes we have to work and then the inspiration comes. So in the latter, when we work and then the inspiration comes, good. You're invested. You're doing your thing. And in like a response to your efforts, there's an inspiration and a person feels excited, a person feels moved. The challenge is the other way. When a person is moved and inspired, sometimes we have the urge to not do anything because, hey, we're so inspired, let's just go with it. And King David was smart enough to say, one second, I have inspiration now. I got to sit down and start writing. Not literally, it could be literally writing, or it could mean just get things going, do something, channel that inspiration that it goes somewhere and move you and change you in some concrete way rather than just inspiration that flows through me and is gone when I'm done.
Thank you for the maskil.
Thank you for the maskil. There we go. Very good. Continues the Gemara. This teaches you this whole association with either King David is inspired and then writes a song, or he writes a song and then the inspiration comes. Either way, this teaches you the presence of the divine will not rest. Not when a person's feeling lazy. He's not doing any writing, he's not doing any song. Whether literal song like King David or whatever your personal song is, whether your song is a mitzvah, whether your song is tzedakah, whatever your song is, but it's not going to happen. King David's doing a song, and that's when the inspiration either comes or that's what it inspires, but certainly not la'atzlos, laziness. And not when a person's amidst the depression, person's down and sad, no inspiration there. And not in frivolity. Like is laughter, but the kind of laughter that's
Excuse me, Rabbi, what's the words for frivolity here?
There's two. One is schleik and then limiter kalos rosh. Schleik means to like laugh. It's like a frivolous kind of laugh. Silliness. Silliness. And kalos rosh means literally lightheadedness. It means frivolity.
Oh, right hand.
Lighthead is the opposite of taking things seriously. It's frivolity.
Right.
So frivolity, depression, laziness, that's not going to bring inspiration. And that's not the way to channel inspiration.
Absolutely.
And not amidst idle chatter, just doing nothing.
Sloth.
So there's like a back and forth here, meaning sometimes people think that a sad, focused, like okay, let's just finish this here. Ella, rather, the only place where inspiration could come, or what inspiration should inspire, is in the joy of a mitzvah. There's a fine balance. Over seriousness that doesn't include any lightness, doesn't include
not an austere kind of.
It's right. Some people have this idea,
mentality,
especially in some other religions, where inspiration comes when a person's closed, locked, over focused, gets rid of any sense of their own pleasure and delight, to the point that it borders on depression, or if not outright depression. On the other hand, people feel like, oh, so they go to the other extreme where it's just frivolous, or other time people associate effort with a more serious, borderline sad mentality or framework. And here the Gemara is telling us, no. Mitzvah is besimcha. Activity, doing the right thing, is in joy. But joy and frivolity are not the same thing. Very much not the same thing. Frivolity is aimless, and joy is very aimed, very focused. So it's a joy that comes in the performance of what I have to do. It's a much deeper joy than frivolity. Frivolity is to escape my reality. Like, you go on a roller coaster and you scream woohoo, What you're trying to do is you're trying to get a thrill to escape what is. Whereas the joy of a mitzvah is not trying to escape anything. I'm very actively engaged in what I'm doing in a very deep and focused way. And that focus is in and of itself the greatest source of joy. And that, says the Gemara, that's the way the inspiration comes. One second, let's just finish. Shenemar, the verse reads, there's a verse in Book of Kings 2, chapter 3, verse 15. I don't know it by heart. I'm looking at the side where it gives a citation. And there it says, Va'ata now, Kuli menagin, bring for me the singer. V'haya kenigin menagin, and it was when the singer sang, Atiyah of Yad Hashem, and there was upon him the hand of God. Who is speaking here? Let's see who, I can't remember who's speaking here. Wait a second, where is the Rashbam?
Is that related to King Saul?
Yes. It's in Book Kings 2. Yes, I think it's
King Saul was depressed, and so David.
No, I don't know if it's in 1 second. Let me look it up here. Kings 2 would be Saul. No, Saul would be in Kings 1.
Yeah, that's why I'm not sure who it was.
Elisha, that's who it is. Elisha. After he became angry at the king of Israel, his prophetic spirit left him until he requested, bring down me a minstrel. And it came to pass when the minstrel played, that the hand of the Lord came upon him. Okay.
2 Kings 3?
2 Kings, chapter 3, verse 15. We'll look at it after. Don't worry, we won't forget. Continues the Gemara. Rabbi Yehuda said the name of Rav. Just as it is with respect to divine inspiration requires joy. Yosef, we'll get after, don't worry. I'm not going to forget. We'll get a pen after. We can write it
I
down.
have.
Okay.
Just couldn't find it.
So, just as it is with respect to divine inspiration that requires joy, he says everything in the name of Rav. The same thing is true of halacha. When a person does a halachic ruling or wants to know the halacha, one cannot do it from laziness, certainly. One cannot do it from a place of frivolity, also certainly, because you'll break all the boundaries. And you can't even do it from a place of depression, because then a person's so focused and angry on trying to that either he ends up breaking the halacha because he's annoyed, or becomes too stringent to the halacha because he's trying to be depressed. Proper halacha is when a person is in a state of joy, happiness, not frivolity, but a proper state of internal, inherent good joy.
That's a question in and of itself, right? What is joy?
Absolutely.
Very good question. This is what we have, chapter 26, 27, 28, and 29, 30, 31, 32, 33, 34 of Tanya.
Looking forward.
Chapter 26 to 30.
Through 34 of Tanya.
That deals with joy.
Yes, specifically 26, 28, 29. 26, 27, 28, yes.
We talked about the joy of mitzvah.
Yeah.
Isn't there also the joy of Hashem, that loving Hashem, fearing Hashem?
That is the joy of a mitzvah. The joy of a mitzvah is that a person feels.
So it's
The
under
joy of a
the
mitzvah
category-
is
No
the
separation.
joy of being able to attach oneself to the ultimate truth of the divine. That's the ultimate joy.
Yeah, but doesn't that come before mitzvah though?
Okay, could be for mitzvah, could be through mitzvah. It could be both ways, right? Like King David had song, then inspiration, or inspiration, then song. So it could be both ways. Starts from joy, the person's so excited about his attachment to Hashem, so he rejoices, does a mitzvah. Or the person does a mitzvah and contemplates the great privilege in being able to connect to the divine, and that brings the joy. Both ways. Okay, continues the Gemara. So the same thing with true with respect to halacha. Amar of Nachman said, "Achein l'chaloim toiv." The same thing is true for a good dream. In order for a person to have a good dream, he has to go to sleep in a state of joy, proper joy, not frivolity, not depression, not laziness, but proper joy and the wholesome connection he feels with Hashem. That is the conduit for good dreams. Let's just flip. We're gonna get all comments, but we have to finish it. It's hard to do and keep on stopping. So let's just allow it to flow, and then we'll be able to address everything. Okay. We're actually going to stop over here because tomorrow the Gemara is going to raise what seems to be a contradiction. We just said before that in order for halakha to be done properly, it has to be with joy. What happened to the fear and awe and reverence of learning Hashem's Torah and standing in God's presence? How do I balance that, or make that coexist, be consistent with the joy we're just talking about? The Gemara is going to raise that, and we're going to discuss how to reconcile that, and we'll see how these two work together, and we'll introduce, God willing, what the Tanya has to say about it. Because Tanya speaks about this idea. Well, there was something this morning in today's Tanya
Is
that
considered homiletic dialogue that's happening now?
this is drush. Yes, it's not. It's actually some of it's brought up in halacha. This idea of the presence of Hashem only resting with joy is actually mentioned in halacha. But it is for the most part of drush. And 1 second, there was something in this morning's Tanya that I was reading. I'm like, oh, it's connected to the Gemara. What was it? Pastor Tanya. And look at today's Tanya. As I was reading it, I was thinking that it's connected to our Gemara. Oh, it's going to come up tomorrow. Because here it's going to come up tomorrow. Okay, yes. It's connected to the Gemara tomorrow. So tomorrow's Gemara is going to be connected to today's Tanya. All right, you have a wonderful day. Yosef, good to have you back.